Hello everyone, Revan619 here, how the devil are you? Today I'm going to be doing something that PC enjoyers have been requesting for a very long time, which is looking at some of the companions base builds that come in later that are locked to say level 15 or higher like Jay, Yrliet, Ulfar and Marazhai, and talking about how I would improve these base builds to make it better and a little bit more optimal. As we know, previously I had convinced the developers to change some of the companions base builds and even give extra gear, Ulfar being a big example of this, and some of the alterations that were done in other places. With that in mind, I still had more suggestions that weren't considered by the developers, but I would like to offer those suggestions for the audience to decide if they would like to do that and change some things. So in Toybox, you have the option that when you respec allies, you can do it from 0. So if you scroll all the way down and do this respec from 0, for some people installing Toybox, this is a default feature. So I've had people in the past who didn't realize this wasn't a default feature. But with this, we can respec some of our companions from scratch. So I'm going to have a look at some of them and do that. And we are going to start with Jay. I'm not going to change from being an officer. I'm not actually going to change their classes. I'm just going to redo their distributions. Ideally, this is how we would actually get the characters from the developers. They would be locked in like this, and then we could fully customize them. I still really hope they're doing this, and if Owlcat or anyone in the community manager team does still watch my channel, please do consider giving us full specs. When we say full spec, this is what we mean. We don't mean changing the homeworld, we don't mean changing the origin, we don't mean changing the archetype, though some people might. We just mean let us level up from here. With that in mind, with the way that I like to do Jay, you're going to want to cover one of your fellowship skills. Lore Imperium can be used a lot to enhance a lot of her stuff through her Cold Trader bonus, and that can be turned into HP as well as armor. Jay can also cover up to 6 skills, even for Unfair. She's actually the only companion and the only build viable to be able to cover up to 6 skills, whereas most others will cover 2 at the most, if not even fully committing to that. For the early game, for Jay, you can pick either Commerce or Coercion, depending on whichever you'd like to have in your party. I usually give Persuasion to Cassia, so we don't need to worry about that, and we are going to get a little bit of Lore Imperium. So I'm going to start off with the Coercion. The first ability that I'm going to get, this is the reason why I think Jay isn't as good as Cassia, is literally that she just doesn't have access to Decisive Response in her first 15 levels. So by giving Jay access to this is going to make her a lot more potent. Moving on, we're going to increase her Ballistic skill as usual, though she does take Fellowship first, but it doesn't matter about switching them around. I'm also going to take Ready to Serve. This is going to be so when Imperial character is affected by an ally's non-damaging ability or an affects an ally with such ability, their resolve is increased by 3. We like the officer being able to increase ally resolve. Next, I'm going to pick up Lasting Impression. This is one of the ones Jay's has by default, and it is incredibly potent, and it gives extra half bonuses, and it will stack when you use Finest Hour, so you can get even more stat bonuses increases happening when you're doing your officer buffs. We're going to continue to increase Ballistic skill. Now, we have the option here of either going for move, as Jay's default build does, or you can even take something like Get Back in the Fight if you wanted a little bit of healing, or even Break their ranks. I still prefer move for my personal playstyle. Next, I'm going to take Doing My Part. That's because if she goes Overseer or Master Tactician, chances are there's not going to be overlap, though I've not tested how Doing My Part works with the AP reduction stuff in Overseer. It might not work as we would like it to, and that is potential but for bugs there, but that's just a general Imperial world issue. If that is bugged, then maybe the developer should be looking at that. Next, we're going to take Focus, incredibly useful for Unfair, which is whenever the officer uses an ability on an ally, that ally gains bonus to their Perception and Ballistic skill equal to 2 plus the officer's Fellowship bonus. These bonuses stack, but half of the stacks rounded up are lost at the end of the target's turn. This is incredibly potent and incredibly useful. I'm going to continue leveling Coercion here, and whilst Jay now gets the good Finest Hour upgrades, I'm going to take 4 before 1, but it doesn't matter because obviously you recruit Jay at level 15. Then I am actually going to put some points into Lore Imperium because we do use this for a lot of her stuff. I'm going to then continue to increase her Fellowship. Now, optional here, I take Steel Resolve, and I do this for some of my next buffing that I'm coming up to, so again, that +3. Other people like to have Personal Oversight, and there are some other people that would say go for Leader's Assault or No Respite here, but I'm going to go for Steel Resolve because I'm going to be taking Air of Authority next. So as I said, I'm taking an Air of Authority, and then I'm going to be following up by taking a characteristic training of Perception because I want to be able to increase Perception at the next skill level up. I'm also going to be taking Inspiring Speech. The reason we take Inspiring Speech is our authority immediately grants momentum to the target equal to the target's resolve. And because we're going to be putting on a lot of resolve here, and obviously with our authority be increasing the resolve, we're going to be seeing a lot coming in. So the more resolve that our officer has, the more that we'll also be giving to allies. I'm then going to continue to increase Law Imperium a little bit here. Then I'm going to take Perception to help with enemy dodge. And then for here, because there's not many we can take here, I am actually going to take Characteristic Training Agility. We're not going to use Agility too much, but it is going to help a little bit in the early game for when it comes to initiative ordering. And it also depends on some of the colony events you have here. But +5 Agility is never too bad, and it's better than what Jay normally takes with her Nimble and her Swift movements. And obviously finishing in with Officer's Finest Training, Finest Hour Upgrade 1. Now, Jay already comes as part of her base talents with Gunslinger and Dual Weapon Fighting, so we don't need to take that, so that's pretty good. I'm not actually going to be looking to be building into Drukhari or Aldari weapons, but one thing to keep note of is Jay's Cold Trader Acumen is incredibly powerful and very overpowered ability. You can just see her skills here just coming in with those bonuses, and I haven't even leveled her past 15. And her Never Play Fair allows her to use Fellowship and Serve Intelligence. This is much more powerful than Be Smart, because Be Smart is very limited by how much you can increase your intelligence, but Fellowship is just a much better stat, and it's much easier to increase and has a lot more support. So if we look over at some of the gearing that I have here, one of the reasons we like to build Law Imperium is for Breacher's Armor. We can also use the Helm of Determination, and we can also use St. Cognatius' Scriptures. This will also stack our Law Imperium, but it will also keep increasing armor based on Law Imperium. So the higher that goes up, and even when we receive buffs, that will go through the roof. For now, I actually have the Commissar's Cap on it, because I like giving those allies that crit chance. And the other item I haven't heard is Commander's Chrono, but you'll use the Pair Holster in early game. Now, whilst I haven't covered this before, the Abyss Spinner's Gloves is something someone on my Discord was very passionate about. They asked me why I didn't use it, and I said, well, because it didn't benefit my setups. However, they were very adamant that I was invalidating their way of playing the game by answering the question, which isn't what I was trying to do. So I thought I'd just cover it just as a little olive branch. Say this is something you can use, especially if you then use a secondary with a weapon like Fusion Spark. So you swap to have this out, so you get that 80%, and then you can get 20% of that 80%, and you can give that to ally. You can also give some of the Whereas critical damage to allies. So this is going to be something that is quite useful when you're doing your buff cycle. Another option that I have on here is because I'm using the Hotshot Las Pistol and the secondary quick firing Las Pistol here, one thing we can do is we can use a Temperas Carapace Elite Backpack, and this is to help build Jay into more of a gunslinger. So if you do want to go down the route of being a gunslinger, this is going to be very useful, though I still like to keep the Commissar Boots on here because it's another way that we can generate some MP, and it's also very effective with the Onslaught Amulet to make her quite an effective gunslinger based build. So having a quick little look at the spreadsheet. So one of the plans I do, if I do go into Master Tactician, one of the things I like to do is pick up stuff like Base Skill Logic and Base Skill Lord Xenos. This is to help enhance these, so for skill checks, and then an event later you can even take the advanced skills, and this is just for the late game checks. This is going to be very similar to the build that I actually have on the spreadsheet. We still get in Grenada here, and we still go for the normal gunslinger stuff, getting Inspire, getting Strong Point, and then getting Further. This will, and obviously Linchpin first, this will help make her both good for buffing and also a little bit of support damage. And then because of we've been a little bit more efficient, we can get Be Vigilant earlier, we can get Break Their Ranks earlier, we can get Pair for Assault, we can get Leader's Assault and Personal Oversight as well, and then even No Respite. So these are some options to help increase the base build for Jay. So let's continue on and say look at Yrliet. When it comes to enhancing Yrliet, the thing that we have to consider is the thing that holds her back the most is Operative is just not a very strong archetype. It doesn't scale well into Unfair, and it's only really viable for Daring when it does very high damage and is able to one-shot, though that doesn't mean it's unplayable. However, some of the early level 15 stuff is a bit random, and I mean literally one of her talents still references a talent from Alpha that no longer exists in the game, so the game just applies a random talent. So there is some work that we can do here to fix her base build. So I want to still keep in with the theme of going for Sniper, but sort of enhance how we're going to do that. So we will keep her Operative as before. Like I said, I'm only changing what the talent selection is. One of the first ones we're going to want to actually get into is Uncanny Sight, because that will enable quite a lot of her stuff for the Operative, and it is going to be useful to have that coming in and slowly building up, especially if you use other operatives in the party. Going into Ballistic Skill first, but the first thing we're going to want to pick up when it comes to the talent side of things is her unique Path of the Outcast to increase her attack economy. As we are planning to be a sniper and we're not going to be moving very much, Sharpshooter is going to be a good damage increaser, so we are going to be taking Sharpshooter. We're also going to continue with the ballistic skill. One of the things to note with Sharpshooter is it does come from your int bonus, as well as also getting some bonuses from perception. So if you want to get more damage, you actually need to push the intelligence side harder, which Yrliet doesn't get much intelligence, so we are going to aim to try and fix that a little bit. When it comes to her abilities here, you could still stick with precise attack, though it isn't one that I value very much. You can even use tactical knowledge because we are getting better exploits applying, so there is a chance to use that. Or you could just go with joint analysis, and because I'm going the bounty hunter route, this is going to be just enough to get a little bit of bonuses to allies, and it means that if we do buff her up, then she'll further buff the party. Continue to improve the awareness because she is a high perception based character, so this one is going to be absolutely fine. I'm going to pick up Tide of Excellence because she does a lot of exploit pop-in, so this will allow us to build it up, and because we're building a version that has increased attack economy, we will actually get a lot of use out of this. Next, I'm going to pick up Deadly Accuracy. Unfortunately, this only adds crit flat damage, so if you did 100 damage, this would only actually add 107 to it. So you, instead of doing 100, you do 107, so you're only actually adding +7. If it added base damage, this would be an incredibly powerful talent. I do hope it's one they rework in the future. Dismantling 3 is the one that she takes by default, which is absolutely fine. Gonna actually still keep her increasing Lord Xenos because we do want someone to cover that. Now here we can either try to take 2 points in intelligence or 2 points in perception. It's going to be up to you which you want to do. For now, I am going to go to perception, but if you went for 2 intelligence, that's also fine. Next up, we do still take ballistics calculation because now that we have exploits on there, there is chances that we are more likely to get that 15%. And we are going to take 1 point in Medicaid just so she can heal. The second ability we take, definitely still get perfect spot. And then we're going to get some characteristic training on the intelligence, because like I said, it is going to be very important to push this, especially if you want to increase her base damage. Sniper expertise is going to be another really good one, because this extra arm penetration is going to help us do quite a bit more damage on those sniper shots. And then, like I said, you can either take 2 intelligence to finish it off, or you can take 2 perception. So I went with perception first, but I actually think that now that I've had the thought about it, getting that intelligence up quicker is actually going to be more valuable, especially if you have more gear to increase perception than you do to increase intelligence. The last comm talent, I am still going to take Swift Sight, so as you loop around your bounty hunter, people that do like to stack this on multiple targets will still have access to it. By default, Yrliet takes Dismantling Attack 4, though you could easily take 3. It's up to you which you want to use. Gear-wise, because I go into Bounty Hunter, having self-calibrating goggles is going to be good for attack economy. Because we're looping terms, Metronome can be used to actually get some extra stats in here. Her Wraithbone Necklace is still very good. Marksman Braces is still something I really like. Elder Flow is something you can use to help with the AP of the attack economy, though you could swap this out. The Chameleon Cloak, for 10% dodge, you can use that, or you can use something else. This is up to you to switch. There aren't actually that many really decent cloaks for a ranged companion, and especially for a sniper-based companion. So this is still going to be a little bit more open to what you want to go with. You can even take on something like Backpack Arm-Piercing ammo just to help support your party if you are using Executioners. But like I said, it's going to be more up to you what you go and you put into here. As for the boots, you definitely want the Sharpshooter boots to get extra arm penetration. You will find that you're probably going over the maximum arm penetration, so you'll have a lot of excess coming in, but that's absolutely okay. We're not going to have any issues with that. Guns that I've gone here is the Eye of Hecticon, because obviously if you can line up people, you can get more attacks, and using the gift of the Kernus, which is another way you can get more prey. For the rest of the build, it is very similar to what we did before with Yrliet. Going in with getting Grenadier early on, getting Hunter's Ambush and Hunting Surge, as well as Heightened Concentration. This means that as a bounty hunter, you're going to have exceptional arm penetration, so it's not something you need to worry about. Save of the Kill is going to be good for looping turns, as well as getting Expiring Trophy and Expert Finesse, so you can actually increase your attack economy, and making sure that you use Claim the Bounty on a prey to kill to get more AP. Yeah, you're going to be seeing a lot of use out of this. Still getting Characteristic Training Perception. Drukhari, Weapon Efficiency and Equipment, they're only taken for Act 3. If you're not planning to take Yrliet Attack 3, do drop those talents, and then you can sort of build more into your other areas for your sniper talents. But Extermination coming in early for her is really good, because obviously your attack economy. I always like to get Eager for Battle first. You can swap that around, but I do find that this is a very AP hungry class, and naturally you always want to get Degraded Defense. And coming in later, Death Dealer is less important, because it's not like with Pascal where it builds up exceptional damage, and Deadly Aim is something that is going to be good to enhance it. But if you wanted to go for, say, Masterful Display or something, you could switch to that, though the excess ballistic skill doesn't really benefit her as much as some of the other characters. When it comes to improving base builds, I actually don't have any issues with Ulfar's base build. I think the developers did a really good job updating his base build. Ulfar's biggest limitations is the fact that he doesn't have any rate of fire gear. You need rate of fire gear to make a more potent soldier. I would also like to see to go in with his Might Ephemeris armor. It would have been nice if there was a way to lower the AP cost of Go for the Throat to make it more efficient. But his Icebreaker Sabatons that you get in the lab of DLC 4, I think this is fantastic for looping those kicks. And you can obviously put on the slicing symbol on him to generate a lot of MP as well as AP, and you can just loop things really well. I just feel like the upgrade to the gauntlets, they just weren't that good. Like I said, if they had something on the gauntlets that would have lowered the AP of Go for the Throat, and then you could have combined that with the reset, so you would have 1 AP resets, that would have made him incredibly potent being a mixed attacker, and I think it would have done a lot more work for him. The Typhoon Bolter isn't a bad option. It can make for one really good burst fire. You can still stick with the Annihilating Bolter, depends on which you like to use, but overall, like I said, I don't think Ulfar actually needs his base build changed. I think it is really good. But then we come along to this clown, Marazhai. Whilst I don't think he should be a Blade Dancer, I do think his tier 2 should change, and I think we should recruit him at level 15. So I want to go over the base build that I would take from level 15, and then talk about the options that I would consider for his tier 2. So like I said, I don't think we need to change off from Warrior. But what I am going to do is I'm going to start building into Medicae. Then early on, we're actually going to get Rigorous Training, because this is going to be incredibly important for him. Not just because we get the extra dodge when we use Charge or Slash, but because we keep the MP. The first one that's going to be important for him is going to be Desolation, so his melee attacks get extra damage against enemies with no allies and cells. We're going to want to pick up his weapon skill, and the first talent we definitely want is Breakthrough. More Medicae, because you can probably guess what I'm going to suggest with him, but we'll get there when we get there. We take in some weapon skill. Now, here we have two options. If you want to parry more, you can take Dueling Mastery. However, another option we have here, and something to consider, is base skill Medicae to really help pump it, because you don't pump Medicae as hard on a Warrior as you do a Blade Dancer, and we'll come to that more later. It's up to you which you want to go with, but yeah, definitely consider the base skill Medicae on this respec option. Now, for his secondary skill, he's not going to be investing much into strength early on, so it's not going to be very useful to go into athletics, but demolition is probably covered by at least 3 other members of your party. So for now, we are just going to pick athletics. It's going to be very important to pick up Shearing Strikes here, because it's going to work into the build that we're building for. I don't like Daring Breach 1, which is what he normally takes. We're going to take Daring Breach 2, which is the much better upgrade. I am actually going to take Cautious Disengage. So attacks opportunity have 28% less damage to the warrior, but movement within range of attacks opportunity costs 1 MP less. This is going to be more important for us, because we do want to be setting up a lot of Shearing Strikes to get up our attack economy. Building up agility is going to be very important to Marazhai. Now, we could still take Reckless Strike, or you can take Sworn Enemy. It's going to be up to you. For now, I'm actually going to be taking Sworn Enemy, and I'll discuss more on that why later. Though Reckless Strike is going to be incredibly powerful if you wanted to do the tier 2. So it's up to you. It's up to you which you take here, and later on we'll take the opposite. For now, let's go with Reckless Strike. Why not? Next one, I'm going to take Characteristic Training Perception. It's going to be useful because we're changing his tier 2. More agility. Agility is always good, especially on a agility-based warrior. Then I'm going to take Easy Target, which isn't going to be as good as other options, though you could argue to take Reckless Fury here if you take Reckless Strike. So it's up to you which you're going to go with. Though Reckless Fury, once you get to endgame, actually has no use, so Easy Target is the one I'm going to pick. Demolitions, because it's just a skill to take. Then you could try to put a point in Toughness, which is optional, but I'm going to put in for Perception, which is going to be way better for us. And because we are going to be using Drakari weapons, we're going to actually take on Finesse here, and this is going to be very useful for most of the game until end game. Lastly, finishing up on Daring Breach 4. Though you could take Daring Breach 1, but we do sometimes want to take those attacks of opportunity, and that's for some of our other gear. Now, the reason why I said that if he came like this would be absolutely fine, because that means for DLC enjoyers, we can then move away from Assassin and actually go into Executioner. And because of Marazhai's origin, where he gets bonuses to strength based on enemies that are suffering from darts, he's an incredibly potent executioner. The first one I like to pick up is Pain Resonance because we get an AoE. Naturally, we're going to want Anatomy Expert because that's going to increase our wounds quite a lot. Weapon skill, always very good. Picking on Does It Hurt, so we can actually get some extra dots onto enemies. Then we're going to want Exsanguination because it's another way to set ourselves to bleed, and it's also going to give us bonus to dodge as well as MP. So yeah, that's going to be very potent on him. Because of the changes to Executioner, I do take Soul of Distress, so we can give more penalties to enemies for when they're trying to take those skill checks. More Medicaid because that's going to enhance our playstyle. We're going to be picking up Agility. This is where I like to pick up dual weapon combat. It's going to be useful for him, especially with his unique stuff coming in later. Then we are going to take Master of Torture to start increasing those dot damage. More Agility, more Medicaid. Then I like to take the Carnival of Misery upgrade 3. Then this is an optional one. You could pick something else here. So I like Perfect Anatomy to get that extra 9% armor. Though if you don't care for armor, Deep Lacerations. So it's up to you. You could even take Deafness in the Air or even Bloody Trail. There's quite a few things. And even something like Maddening Flames is another really good option. For now, I am just going to take Perfect Anatomy. Then I'm going to increase his Perception because we'll need that for some of his battle against his sister. Reckless Abandon is going to be a great one for increasing his damage by trading in some of those temporary wounds. Then picking up True Bond Superiority, this means we can now use dual weapon combat without any minuses coming in here. Fragile Playthings to start adding some armor strip, which is going to be coming useful with our other weapons and setups. More Perception, yep, Perception's always good. More Athletics. Then Racking Weakness. For every point of armor that we are stripping from enemies, we will increase our damage. It's very good to abuse this later. We're going to get some more Perception. Now, Poetry of Pain would be a great one if it applied to melee. Unfortunately, it's ranged only, so we're actually going to take Advanced Skill Medicaid to get an even bigger boost to Medicaid. We're then going to take the next Carnival of Misery. I've taken one here. It's up to you what you'd want to take, but for now, yeah, I'm going to just be taking one. Now, as we go into the Exemplar, this is going to be the only one I cover for Exemplar, but if we take on Eager for Battle, we can then take Thick Skin, because we're going to have quite a few armor boosts coming in, so this is going to help with our parry, which will also help against Ymirez. We then take Medicaid. Then I'm going to come into All-Encompassing Agony, as well as then getting on more weapon skill. Now, this is going to be a big one. It's going to be Prey on the Weak. Whilst Marazhai is bleeding, every kill he makes grants him a second +5 bonus to weapon skill and ballistic skill. It's going to make him incredibly potent. This is then at level 39, where you can take the opposite. If you've not got Swollen Enemy, you take Swollen Enemy. If you've got Reckless Strike, you take Reckless Strike. We take on more Medicaid here. We can then get Degraded Defense, and then the last one we'll get here, which is going to be the level 41 for when we're fighting against the sister. You can then take on something like Sickling Pain is a one that is optional to burn Fatigued. You could even, if you wanted to get some skills to Lord Xenos, you could take that, though I'm not the biggest fan there. Maddening Flames is another popular one. You can also take on something like Deep Laceration. Deep Laceration is going to be a good one for getting on those extra bleeds, and because he does take on a lot of extra bleed, it is going to be something worthwhile. After Deep Laceration, we can take on more weapon skill, and then because not many of the warrior talents are going to be best for us, Open Engagement isn't a bad one. So it's a way to get a one-off increase to one attack. And then we're going to have some options based on what we're doing here with some of the other things. Though we're not going to be getting much out of these because our toughness bonus is so little. Though you can get a lot of deflection from this way. And if you are buffing toughness from allies, that means Gift of Torment is fairly usable here. We're getting in some agility, so definitely is another option. It's going to be something that only really works when enemies are stacked up, and when you get into Act 5 it's not going to be useful because most of those enemies are immune to toxin. We can then pick up Mantle of Agony, which is quite effective when you take on a lot of buffs to toughness, and it's very easy to replace toughness. This is going to be relying on allied buffs. We then take on Athletics, and then a really big boost is going to actually come from Peak Condition, though you could take Destroyer first. It's up to you if you want to take Destroyer or Peak Condition first, but yeah, converting our HP to Strength is going to be a really big one for Marazhai here. And now that we've got that bonus coming in here, other things like using Impetus, though we are going to be mostly using Slash, is going to get a big bonus here. Then we can increase Athletics a little bit more. Crowd Kill is going to be one that we don't use too much, but that we are running out of a lot of options that we have here for Warrior, though you could even take Ramming Speed if you wanted to. Sickening Pain is going to be one that can decrease enemy stats, so it's going to be quite useful for when you're going against single target bosses. So I will grab Sickening Pain here. Continue to increase agility. Then we can either take some perception here, though if you feel like you've already got enough, you can start moving over into strength. That's absolutely okay. Getting a little bit more demolitions, and then we can finally pick up Destroyer, which is going to be very good with our shearing strikes. And whilst it's not nothing, it is something, we can use Blade Flurry to start increasing our slashes, which will give us up to a nice level 50. Now, like I said, Marazhai on this version of the build will actually be incredibly potent because of some of his base features, which is, as enemies are bleeding, Power from Pain will give him extra strength and willpower, and 1 temporary rune for each creature suffering burning, bleeding, stunned, or toxin within 5 cell radius. So as you spread these effects, you will see quite a few big boosts to here, and his weapon skill will go through the roof as he's building up things. And he doesn't have a bad Medicaid coming in here, so you can even stack up more Medicaid gear, and it can do quite well. Some of the gear that I would also like to use, like over on Carmine Crown on Cabela, Voidborn's Pride could be fairly usable, and you can even use stuff like Diagnosta or even Swashbuckler Cloak or Inertia Boots. But because you have a lot of access to Drukhari stuff, the Bloodseeker's Clave to get extra dodge is going to be really good. The Imminent Torment, which you can get 2 of, is going to be very potent, as well as just getting stuff like Iron Cape to increase his agility, or even the Hand Pattern Dataling to increase all of his skills, which will increase his Medicaid. And you can even throw an extra stuff like Navy Swashbuckler's Cloak to increase his armor pen, so you can use stuff like the Spiked Gloves, which is where his melee attack gain 15% arm penetration. If the target's armor is less than or equal to the where his arm penetration, the target must pass a toughness resistant test with a plus 20 bonus or suffer 4 bleeding. So he can stack out a lot of bleeding. And I even use counter attacks with Enforcer's Light Boots, so you could put on something else, and you can even put on other items to further enhance his bleed. So I've brought the spreadsheet over so you can also see kind of what we're going for here in the plan. And yes, like I said, there is a lot that you can do with here, and I hadn't even put in Blade Flurry. But these are other options that we can go with Marazhai. Being able to go into an Executioner would be such a huge boost for him. That's why having a level 15 locked version of him that you then can level up to 29 or higher would be way better, and it would open up the DLC path to him. This is something that I really hope the developers consider. So if you are watching, please hear my plea, developers. Balance the game for Evan. No, but it's all down to what people want to see. If you want to see more control over specs, do ask the developers to let us spec from level 2, and maybe they will listen one day. We don't know what's coming in 1.6, and we don't know what we're going to be getting in DLC 3, other than the fact there's going to be a lot more Necron content. But that's all I've got time for today. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I will see you all in the next one.